Can I bring the committee to order, please? What's going to happen is I'm going to step away from the first item. It's because I've got a non-pecuniary interest in that, and my vice chair will take over. But what I'll do is I'll open the meeting, and then we'll go from there. Welcome to those attending and those viewers on the YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Higgins. I'm the chairman of this meeting. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agendas, copies of which are accessible online underneath the live broadcast. If you want to see the addendums, you just click at the bottom. For those present in the room intending to speak, please note that you will be filmed, and any statement you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anybody speaking today that your voice will only be audible online if the microphone is switched on. We're not expecting a fire alarm. If there is one, please follow officers out of the building. Mobile and tablet devices, please can you switch them to silent, and those you can see that the committee will be using I'm just switching mine to silent. There you go. You can see that the committee will be using computers as we're trying to, in an effort to go paperless. Attending for this meeting tonight, and officers and councillors. First of all, I'll introduce the councillors. Councillor Alan Bennett, my vice chair, will be taking over shortly. Councillor Keith Burrows, welcome. Councillor Elizabeth Gaelic, welcome. Councillor Sansapuri, welcome. And Councillor Singh, welcome. My officers are Ros Johnson, Head of Planning and Development, Management and Building Control, sitting on my right. Sorry, did I miss a councillor? Roy Chandar, I did say Roy Chandar. Well, we're missing a councillor, yeah. We're short one. Someone's missing. Who are we missing? We're not missing him. You just missed me. Did I? I beg your pardon. See, God, that's a black mark for me at the towards the end of the year. I'll have to. Councillor Roy Chandler, welcome. Thank you. Hey, and I've got Ros Johnson, Head of Development Management and Building Control, to my right. Further to right to that is Ed Loughton, Owen Concannon, Hayden Richards, Dr. Tilly, Natalie Faircoat is our legal advisor, and she's over my far left, and Anisha. See, I'm getting everything. I should have put my glasses on. I think that's my biggest problem. Anisha, welcome. Thank you. I haven't seen you for a long time. Thank you. Welcome to have come back. It's brilliant. She's very good. Democratic Services. Right. So we'll go on straight on with the agenda. Yep. Apologies for absence. No apologies. Okay. Declarations for interest in matters coming before the meeting? None? Do we agree the minutes of the previous meeting? Agreed. To confirm that all items are marked Part 1. The reason for my interest is I've met the applicant for a ward surgery, so I don't think it's appropriate that I sit here. So I'm going to now hand over.
Many thanks, Chair. So yeah, I was looking around for Mitchell to take us through this one, but it's Owen's going to take us. So agenda item 6, which is the land to the rear of 18 Moore Park Road in Northwood.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, item 6 is for the erection of one detached bungalow with associated parking, including installation of new vehicular crossover, landscaping, cycle parking and refuse storage. Just update, there's no addendum item for this or any of the items on committee tonight, just to make you aware. The application is brought forward to committee due to a petition received with the main concerns related to the adverse impact on the street scene and concerns regarding its location, the dwelling. Full list of the objections are covered in section 6 of the committee report. So there you see the location plan. The site is located to the rear guarding of the corner site of 18 Moore Park Road, which sits on the northeastern side at the junction between Moore Park Road and Grove Road. The properties in the area are generally large, spacious, two-storey dwellings with generous gardens. The site lies opposite number 1A Grove Road, which has received planning permission historically for a replacement dwelling in 2016. The site is not within any constraints or conservation or areas of special local character. So as you see there, it's outside any of the constraints there. And this is an aerial view of the site, located at the back end of the garden. As you can see, they're quite generous, the gardens along this stretch of Moore Park Road. And that gives you the location plan in conjunction with the existing property. So here is the block plan as existing. You can note there on that is an outbuilding associated with number 2 Grove Road, that's on the left hand side. And this just gives you an aerial and block plan as existing. It's outlined in red there, the site. As you can see, it's directly opposite 1A Grove Road. And proposed block plan there. Just to make you aware as well, there has been a history on the site with 2 previous applications refused. The overall scale of the properties were quite substantial in the previous applications. It was also noted about the use within the end of the garden as well as a concern. However, during this application and through pre-app discussion, the scale has been reduced significantly, as you will see from the street view. So that's the actual site as proposed. You see 2 parking spaces, mature landscaping to the, or traditional landscaping to the front and sides, as well as some landscaping to the rear. This is the proposed floor plan. It's a 2-bed dwelling house, bungalow in style, meets London plan standards, dual aspects in nature as well. And there is the revised elevations and section drawing. During the course of the application, we've also got revision to the roof form, which has reduced further in terms of the angle of it, so it appears more modest in terms of the actual height. Okay, and here's the existing street scene and also the proposed street scene. So on the top plan is the existing street scene, and on the bottom you see the bungalow fitted in. And I suppose what we would note is the size of the previous application is also noted in purple on the street scene plan there. So you can see the extent of the reduction in scale from previously proposed. And this just gives you a few street photos of the existing site. This is taken from Grove Road. And that left-hand, or the top left, is the application's rear elevation, 18 Moore Park Road, and their garden as existing. I don't know what is. And then we have a photo showing the application site in the context of the neighbours on the opposite side of Grove Road, where you have 1A directly opposite, and then a street scene photo below. And this just gives you, I suppose, an idea of the actual extent of the garden at number 18. Even when you divide the actual site, it would still be quite a generous garden, which would be quite similar to number 24 Moore Park Road, which is on the opposite side of the road. So this just gives you an idea of the plan and history. So this was the original application in 2019, which was for 2 dwellings. As you can see, it was quite, the extent of it was quite big, and over. We rightly refused that one. And then there was a follow-up application that was refused. This was refused again on scale and design. As you can see on the right in the block plan, it does go right up to the boundary, the 2-storey element, and it would reduce the openness of the actual prevailing character. And this is the current application as it stands. As you can see, it's set in from both sides. It certainly no longer appears cramped within the site itself, and provides generous landscaping to the front and sides and to the rear. In terms of assessments, the principle of replacement dwelling is considered acceptable and has been discussed in detail within paras 7.1 to 7.12 of the report. It is noted that there are 2 previous refusals on the site, with most recent scheme dismissed at appeal. Whilst there would be a partial loss of the garden to the rear of 18 Moore Park Road, the overall size of this ensures the existing property will continue to have a sizable garden similar to the size at number 24 Moore Park Road. It would also meet the aims of planning policy DMH6, which aims to maintain local character, amenity and biodiversity. In terms of design, the revised design reduces the scale of the development from a 5 to 6 bedroom dwelling house over 3 levels to a single dwelling bungalow. This constitutes a significant reduction in the scale and bulk from the previous scheme. The bungalow would be modest footprint that sits comfortably within the plot and avoids a cramped appearance in relation to the site and the existing properties. It would offer a gentle transition in scale, avoiding undue dominance and sympathetic to the streetscape. Overall, the quality of accommodation will be in line with London plan standards. We have consulted our highways officer, who has no objections, and a construction management plan has been secured via condition. In terms of landscaping, the 3 officers have been consulted and raised no objection to the proposed works. Conditions have also been attached ensuring tree protection measures are submitted prior to commencement. Overall, officers are satisfied that the scheme is policy compliant and acceptable, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Owen. So this is a petition item. Do we have the petitioner in the room, Matthew Wardle? Would you like to come forward, just take a seat here? So thank you for attending. You have 5 minutes to address the committee, after which the councillors may choose to ask some questions. So we have a traffic light system. First 4 minutes you'll be on green. When you've got 1 minute left to speak, it will go amber, and then when it gets to red, we'll just politely bring you to a close. So whenever you're ready, I think the microphone's already...
Yeah, I've just switched it on.
So
yeah.
As and when you're ready.
Great, thanks. Good evening, everyone. My name's Matthew Wardle, and I live at 1A Grove Road, which, as discussed, sits directly opposite the proposed bungalow property on the land to the rear of 18 Moore Park Road. Local residents believe this proposal will cause harm and therefore should be refused. The numerous previous applications to build on the land to the rear of 18 Moore Park Road, all of which have been refused, have made reference to the approval for redevelopment of 1A Grove Road as part of their proposal justification. I believe this comparison is unjustified. As a reminder, 1A Grove Road is an example in the last 10 years where planning permission was granted by Hillingdon Council to a developer to allow for the replacement of the previously existing bungalow with a detached property that stands today. The current 18 Moore Park Road application references 1A Grove Road as justifying this application, despite the 1A case concerning the replacement of a bungalow with a detached property more in keeping with the rest of the road's housing stock, while the current application concerns the construction of a bungalow on an undeveloped back garden land on a side of the road where no other dwellings exist. The planning inspector specifically stated that references to 1A Grove Road were incorrect, noting, and I quote, "1A Grove Road sits comfortably within the street scene as it is located at the end of an existing row of dwellings. Therefore, number 1A properly responds to the context and the existing street pattern. On that basis, it is not comparable to the proposal before me. I therefore attach limited weight to this matter in the making of my decision." The previous appeal decision notice regarding a property on the land to the rear of 18 Moore Park Road also detailed that the introduction of a lone dwelling in this location would interrupt and be at odds with the existing street pattern. This would cause unacceptable harm to the street scene. We believe this comment and the rejection verdict also applies to the bungalow on the current application by definition, as it is the only property of this type on the entire road and the only property at all on this side of the street, and therefore it could not properly, and I quote again, respond to the existing street pattern. As the planning inspector was so specific, that should mean that this application should be refused, as otherwise the planning inspector's decision is effectively overruled in our view. I also refer to the comparable referred to in the planning officer's report, paragraph 7.4, regarding 43 and 44 Moore Park Road. I know that this location is very different to the proposed application, with houses already on both sides of the road and therefore not a comparable in our view. We would also observe that the proposed bungalow would undeniably result in less green garden space than the current situation. We believe this is at odds with the Hillingdon DMH6 policy, which states there is a presumption against the loss of back gardens due to the need to maintain local character, amenity space and biodiversity. The proposal would also have a noticeable impact on neighbours, as properties across the road from the proposed bungalow in particular would become overlooked with resultant loss of privacy. For instance, all 3 bedrooms used on a daily basis in my property are at the front of the house, facing the proposed development, and the lack of existing direct opposite overlooking property was a key attractive quality when we initially moved into Grove Road. To conclude, the proposed bungalow reduces the rear garden land with a resultant negative impact on the open and spacious character of the area and sets a concerning precedent regarding DMH6 with back garden construction. In addition, the proposal looks to reintroduce a bungalow back onto Grove Road in a back garden no less, a property type that was previously approved for replacement in the case of 1A Grove Road, having concluded it was out of keeping with the rest of the properties there. I repeat again what the planning inspector said for the land to the rear of 18 Moore Park Road at the previously rejected appeal. The introduction of a lone dwelling in this location would interrupt and be at odds with the existing street pattern. This would cause unacceptable harm to the street scene, and as such, we firmly believe that this application should be refused. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wardle. Bang on time as well, perfectly timed. Any questions from councillors on the committee for the petitioner? No, thank you very much. If you just turn the microphone off. We also have the opportunity for the applicant or agent to speak. Richard Conradi, Jeremy Peter, do we have? Sure, please come and take a seat. So similarly as with the petitioner, you have 5 minutes to address the committee. The first 4 minutes on green, the last minute on amber, and at red we will just politely bring you to a close. Whenever you're ready, just press the microphone and kick off.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Jeremy Peter. I'm the planning consultant who submitted the application on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Conradi, and I'm speaking in support of it. First of all, I would like to commend your officers for what is a well-written committee report that sets out and deals with issues and objections raised in a balanced and comprehensive manner. I would like members to note some important points when considering this application. Firstly, it should be noted that the applicant has worked in a cooperative way with council officers to come up with a scheme that addresses the issues raised by the previously refused scheme via the pre-application and full application procedures. Secondly, and very importantly, this scheme is entirely different from what was refused in the past in respect of scale, design and layout, as well as the consequential impact on the character and appearance of the area. What you have before you is a modest 2-bedroom bungalow that sits well within its plot and not a large 5-bedroom, 2-storey dwelling, which was what was the previously refused scheme. In particular, responding to the appeal inspector's concern regarding the introduction of a lone dwelling on that side of the road, you will note that your officer states that the significant reduction in scale and height, combined with the setback from the road, combined with the proposed landscaping, would mean the proposed bungalow would appear discreet and unobtrusive with little detrimental impact on the street scene. It should also be noted that the bungalow proposed is modest in nature and would have no more impact on the street scene than, say, a garage or outbuilding, which the applicant could erect in the back garden under permitted development. Indeed, the character on that side of the road has changed since the appeal decision, as there is now a building on that side of the road within the garden of 2 Grove Road, which was not there when the previous scheme was considered at appeal. The proposal is located sufficiently away from neighbouring properties as to be being designed in such a way so as not to cause any harmful impact to neighbouring occupiers or cause any detriment to highway safety. All these points are reflected in the scheme before you this evening. The proposed bungalow is located within a residential area in a fairly sustainable location that complies fully with your officer's requirements and makes best use of an urban infill plot in conformity with development plan policies. With regard to planning policy, it should be noted the policy of the London plan and your local plan do not rule out development on garden land. Rather, if it is to be undertaken, it should be done sympathetically and sensitively. This is exactly what this scheme purports to do. Regarding the points raised by objectors, I consider these as being fully addressed and comprehensively in the report by your officers. With all due respect to the objectors who have spoken, he has not added anything new to what has already been considered in the report. It is the role of planning to seek to balance competing concerns and to ensure that development does not cause significant demonstrable harm. Only where demonstrable significant harm is likely to occur should schemes be refused. I would contend that no such demonstrable harm would occur from this development as clearly shown in the officer's report. I therefore ask that you endorse your officer's recommendation and grant permission for this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter. Councillors, any questions at all for the agent? Councillor Chamdale.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. You mentioned the first point that you work cooperatively with the local planning authority. We have that in the report as well, highlighted on point 1.4. So the question I'll ask is, why wasn't this happen 2 applications before?
I was involved in the second application. At that time, we were working on the basis that we thought that the proposal was very similar to 1A Grove Road. After the appeal decision, we looked very carefully at the reasoning put forward by the inspector and worked up a scheme then that we consulted with, went through pre-application with the council to come up with the scheme before you. That's where we are now.
So just so I got it right in my head, so you put a planning application for a 5-bedroom, it got refused by the committee here in Hillingdon through the officer's recommendation. You felt, or the owner felt, that wasn't correct, so you appealed to the inspectorate, and the inspectorate said they upheld the decision of the council, and then you've gone back and then decided to put an application in, like Lego blocks. You put a big Lego block first, and now you're slowly taking bits away, until you've got to right down to the last level. Would I be correct in stating that's what you've put through? Because it's been mentioned, previous applications have been mentioned, I don't know why, but they've been mentioned, so we're considering it on this application. So roughly, is that what the process, step process you went through?
Appeal process is part of the planning process, as you're well aware, Councillor, and what we've tried to do, obviously, at that point I was working for a developer who was looking to purchase the land. This particular application is being undertaken by the owner of 18 Moore Park Road. So at that point, a developer takes a different view and looks at it, at how he can maximise as much as possible. In this case, we were doing it to try and adhere to the inspector's comments, and also working with officers to come up with a scheme that we feel is now compliant with development plan policy and will not have a harmful impact on the character of the area.
Thank you. Any further questions? No, thank you very much for addressing the committee. If you could just turn the microphone off and you can return to the gallery. No councillors have indicated just yet. So the question I sort of was going to ask you just to kick off, I'll ask it slowly to give you more to think. So there is a bit of a juxtaposition here that a bigger house is in keeping with the street scene, a bungalow isn't, but the bigger house is too big for the plot of land and's been refused. And how do we get to what's the thought process in thinking, actually, even though there's not any bungalows around, this is in keeping with the character of the area? Or is that the trade-off?
I suppose it's twofold. I suppose with a bigger two-storey dwelling, it just was not fitting within a rear garden. I suppose the policy in terms of garden development as well means that it should be intimate to the site itself. So we feel a single-storey dwelling is more proportionate to the site it lies in. It's set in from both sides. It's set back between 6 and 7.6 metres from the front of the property, and it maintains a generous garden at the back. It also has added more landscaping to the scheme from previously. That is due to the reduction in the size of the scheme. So with the additional landscaping, it adds to the biodiversity of the site, which is part of the policy as well. So we have to show that it increases biodiversity in terms of the our garden land as well. So that is another aspect that comes into play in terms of this decision, that is different from the previous schemes that have gone forward.
I guess, as with anything in planning, it's always a bit of a trade-off that, actually, yes, a bungalow isn't in keeping with the street scene, but actually it's much, the biodiversity and the size and scale of it within the plot ticks the boxes, and there is kind of a trade-off to be had between the two.
There is a trade-off, but we also feel the bungalow itself is a suitable design for the plot. So, it's the actual roof form is subtly, in size and height. I suppose another point to raise is if you look at the block plan there, all right, it's slightly bigger than the outbuilding, but, the point that is raised, you can build an outbuilding at the back of your rear garden, so that is a factor that is in play as well, and it does front onto a highway as well, which gives it more scope than any other garden land development.
Sure, thank you. Councillor Chamdale.
Thank you, Chair. I'm struggling with this one. It's about garden development, full stop. They've tried their best to put as much as they can in. I think it's a good explanation by the gentleman's name that is a developer before, now it's somebody else. The comments were, could I have some clarity from the officers, from what the petitioner, he mentioned a comment made by the inspectorate saying any development would be harmful to the street scene. That's the first thing. Second one is, times have changed. planning law has changed since I first started sat on this committee, so we have to go with that. What is there any conditions we could place to prevent, should this application be successful? Could we put anything in place that stops any further development from there? You know, all of a sudden we see another application to put 2 flats on top or something like that, because it's basically, it looks like a shed to me with a driveway. So if we could just have some clarity on the first and second point, please. Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of the principle, yeah, it's acknowledged the appeal decision. However, the appeal decision was based on, you know, there was 2 factors. There was the scale of the development on the previous, which was quite bulky and took over quite a lot of the site, as you can see from the previous plans. There was second factor, I suppose, is as I was saying, is we feel that the revised scheme is more in compliance with the policy DMH6. I suppose the policy does say there is a need to maintain the local character, amenity and biodiversity. The reduction in the size of the dwelling, in our view, maintains the local character. The amenity of neighbouring properties is protected. I suppose a point I'd raise in response to the petitioner is that each property is over 21 metres window to window, which protects overlooking and loss of privacy. It's single-storey nature, so you know, in terms of daylight, sunlight, there wouldn't be an impact on neighbours. So that part of the policy we feel is met. And the third point is biodiversity, and in terms of biodiversity, they have done the biodiversity net gain, which demonstrates 10% surplus biodiversity on the site. So when you take all those points into account, we feel it's definitely different from the appeal decision, and I suppose in answer to your second question about the if a further scheme was, first of all, we have a condition restricting permitted development, so they cannot do a roof extension through permitted development, so that pretty much kind of takes that out of play. And I suppose if a further application came in for a 2-storey dwelling, then obviously we will address it at the time, and you know, I suppose it's kind of closer to the appeal decision.
Just to build on Councillor Chamdale's point, so I was going to ask around permitted development rights. So when this property, if approved, if the property was constructed, I'm assuming it would benefit from permitted development rights as any other property would.
We've conditioned that out, so they wouldn't be entitled to do a roof extension.
Perfect. So we're not going to get dormers popping up and loft extensions, and
they'd have to come.
They would have to come back to the planning committee.
Permission.
Great. So that is a good condition to point out. Did you want to come back, Councillor Chamdale, on any of those? Councillor Gelling.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, I mean, it is unusual to have one single home on one side of a road, but it is a single home of, you know, not extensively. The footprint is not large, and it does contribute to our housing needs as it is, and I don't think it complies with all the policies, and the size of a garden on its own, I suppose it can be the only reason for refusal. Is that correct?
Well, we feel from our report, we feel it wouldn't be an appropriate reason for refusal. However, if it came, you know, that is the offer. Really, the scale has gone down considerably. We don't feel that it would be successful in appeal if we did refuse this. That's our own opinion. No, do you want to come back on that? Just a question. So the biodiversity net gain is 7.61, and this is my stupidity and lack of understanding more than anything else. But
given that it's a garden currently, can you talk us through how it's a net gain when you're building a property on said garden?
A garden, a private garden, the level, it comes down to units, by diversity units, and a private garden is limited in the number of units, whereas the likes of hedging actually creates more units than a private garden. It actually contributes more to the biodiversity of a site than, so a native hedge in a site is actually more powerful than a private garden. So in terms of the B&G, it meets that test, and we have a condition attached that they implement it, and it's maintained for 30 years.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. It's there's a scoring system for the type of biodiversity you have rather than just the square footage of the garden space. Any further questions from councillors at all? I know that the petition did speak around the planning inspectorate and their kind of response to the when they sort of upheld the council's decision on the last application. I think you've kind of touched on it, but just to go back over it, you're comfortable that ultimately, if this application really was to go to appeal, the likelihood is that it would be approved, and that we, in recommending this for approval as officers, we are understanding of the comments from the planning inspectorate on the previous application.
We've taken the comments on board. We've got the scheme to an acceptable level in our nature. If this was to go back to appeal, if we will lose it, that's my own officer opinion.
Okay. I think I've bombarded looking down at my phone and all the questions that I noted down to go through. Anything further from councillors at all? I mean, we can sit here all night. Somebody needs to make a move. Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Chair. I know it's going to be disappointing for the petitioners, but based on what the officers have said and what they've taken into account from the previous refusals and what the inspectorate said, they've taken that into account on this application. The new application does meet the policies as required by planning, so I think it's extremely difficult for us to sit here and actually overturn the officer's recommendation to approve this application. Therefore, I move that we do accept officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows. Councillor Sansapuri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After carefully listening to the question raised by members and the objector and explanation given by the officer, I think we don't have much choice, so I second this officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sansapuri. So we are proposed and seconded in favour of approving the application in line with officer's recommendations. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour of approving the application? Those against? Those abstaining? Okay, so one abstention and the rest approved. So agenda item 6, the land to the rear of 18 Moore Park Road, is approved. For those, if anyone is watching online, we're just going to pause now while we retrieve Councillor Higgins as chair to take back over the meeting.
Thank you. Next item is item 7. Hayden, would you like to take us around that one?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Okay, so item 7 relates to Middlesex Stadium on Breakspear Road. The application seeks planning permission for the construction of pitches following the importation of soil. It also includes rainwater harvesting scheme, extensive planting and some habitat creation. So here we have the location plan. As you can see, to the north of the site are the existing pitches. The site at the moment is the home, I believe, to Hillingdon Borough Football Club. To the south of the site you've got residential properties, and to the east you've got some other residential properties, and to the west is farm and greenland. In terms of constraints, as you can see from this plan, the site is entirely within the green belt. It's also worth noting, which isn't shown on this plan, is there is a small water course on the west end of the site, which means that the western end of the site is also within flood zones 2 and 3. So this is the site at present. It's an open field. As you can see from the plans, those white lines are contour lines showing the land levels. The western end of the site is a lot lower than the eastern end of the site, hence the need to infill the site to make these football pitches. And when I was talking about the flood zones earlier on, you can see it on the western boundary of the site. So what's being proposed? As you can see, this is the proposed site plan showing the multi-pitch layout. There are pitches for youth of various ages. There's also some warm-up areas being proposed. Surrounding the site at present is some greenery, trees, planting, other vegetation, which we've put conditions on to make sure it's retained, because that's quite important in ensuring that the development has very limited visual impact. Here we have a proposed landscaping plan. As you can see, it shows the pitches again, but surrounding them there is going to be some wildflower planting to ensure that those biodiversity net gains are met, but also that we add to the greenery of the site and give extra visual buffering from the streets, with Fine Bush Lane being to the south and Breakspear Road to the east. Here we have the adult pitch layout for the site, so the site would be used interchangeably. So if you wanted to use it for the children, then we would use the multi-pitch layout, and if they wanted an adult game, then it would be used with this adult pitch in the warm-up area shown on this plan. Again, that shows the landscaping around the site. So in terms of the section plans, the dark green area shown on the plan is the existing land levels, and the light green areas are the proposed land levels. So as you can see, there is quite a lot of soil being brought in, which I will touch on later. But in terms of the largest increases in land levels, it's to the west end of the site, where it's between around 4 and 5 metres increase. But that area that isn't visible from the street scene, and because it isn't visible from the street scene, it's going to have quite a limited visual impact. I'll show you the landscaping and vegetation, which will screen that from the street later on. And I think between Breakspear Road, it's looking at about 2 to 3 metres in terms of the increase in land levels to create these pitches. It's probably worth noting that this site has already been approved for football pitch use. As you can see from this, although the permission has obviously expired, this was in 2003, it does show pitches to be approved in exactly the same location for one reason or another, which I'm uncertain of. Those pitches weren't carried out, but this application would ensure that the pitches are carried out and that we do get those benefits of the community of having these additional pitches. Here is a bird's eye view plan of the site. As you can see already, there are 2 football pitches to the north, which, as I said, are used by Hillingdon Borough Football Club. To the east, we've got the residential properties and Breakspear Road. To the south, you've got Fine Bush Lane, and you've got some other field and open greenery land to the west of the site. So this is the view of the existing site entrance from Breakspear Road. As you can see, it's quite wide, it's quite open. This has already been used by the existing football pitches. Next we have a view of the site from Breakspear Road, and this is the greenery I was telling you about, which would shield and screen those increases in land levels from public vantage points. So as I said previously, it's quite important that we retain those, and we have put conditions on the application to ensure that all of that land surrounding the site is retained. That's another, probably a better image of Breakspear Road, and again sort of reiterates the point that yes, there are going to be significant increases in land levels, but those land level increases are not really going to be visible by anyone. And I probably is worth saying that during the winter period, that's obviously going to be a lot less dense. However, during that winter period, it's still going to look like a field, just at a higher level of land. It's still going to be grass pitches, which is already there at the moment, so there shouldn't be too much of a visual impact even during the winter seasons. This is the view from Finebush Lane, so you can see the vegetation is even more significant, so you're not going to see the land level changes to the west of the site, which is the most significant land level changes. Here's another view of the access from the car park within the site. As you can see, there's substantial car parking for the existing football pitches, and to ensure that, I guess, there is parking for everyone once these pitches go ahead, there is also this overflow car parking. So going between the two, you can see there is a sea of parking for anyone using the site for sports purposes in the future. Here is a view of the existing clubhouse. This is a view from the centre of the site looking toward the clubhouse. So you can vaguely see, but you can see some of the land level changes and hence the need to infill some of these areas. Here is another view from the centre of the site showing the proposed pitches and the views toward Finebush Lane. As I said before, the landscaping on the boundary is quite significant, which is why we've put those conditions on to make sure that it's retained. Here's a view from the main car park toward the southern boundary of the site, looking toward Breakspear Road and also the proposed pitches. And here's a view of an existing path through the middle of the site leading to the overflow car parking, and this has been there for a while and it will be formalised partly by this application. So in conclusion, I just wanted to touch on a few things. So during the process of the application, we had some concerns about the type of soil that was being imported, and discussions were had with the EA, and a suitable condition has been added or recommended to ensure that clean, free from waste soil is imported to the site, and that also it is delivered at times which limit any adverse impact on the local highways network, because that is a concern that we had, i.e. having this tons of soil being brought, well not tons, but various cubic metres of soil being brought in could definitely have some adverse impacts on the highways network. So we've put a lot of restrictions on when those soil imports can actually take place. So the concerns that we had in that regard have been overcome. Additionally, concerns are raised about the impact of the proposed development on the Greenbelt. Whilst the proposed use is appropriate development within the Greenbelt, we did feel that the infilling of land would cause some limited harm to the openness. Whilst the harm is noted, it is considered that due to the site's heavily screened nature, the visual impacts of the development would be minimal, and I think I highlighted how well screened the site is during the presentation, hopefully. Furthermore, the introduction of sports pitches and the promotion of healthy communities through sport and the better utilisation of underutilised land is considered to constitute very special circumstances which outweigh the limited harm that I just spoke about. It's also worth noting that Sports England were consulted on the application and had no objections to it. The EA were also consulted on the application and had no objections to it, subject to conditions which we have put in as part of our recommendation. So, taking everything into consideration, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. One last point that I wanted to note regarding conditions, because I did find a typo in condition 4. If this application is recommended for approval, there is some lettering within brackets which would need to be removed from condition 4, which is requiring a drainage management plan. It's very minor. I'm happy to go through it at the end of the presentation. I'm also happy to go through it now, but otherwise, thank you for listening.
Well done, Hayden. You might as well do it now, so it's out of the way.
Okay. So at present, the condition reads, prior to commencement, except for demolition, ground and enabling work, any relevant phase of development, excluding demolition and site clearance, a scheme for the provision of sustainable waste management should be approved in writing by the local planning authority. There's basically duplicates within the brackets, if I can draw everyone's attention to condition 4. So we'd just like to remove those parts which say, except for demolition, ground and enabling work, any relevant phase of this development, excluding demolition and site clearance, is removed. And the final condition would read, prior to commencement of development, a scheme for the provision of sustainable water management should be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority.
Brilliant. Councillor Small, I believe you want to make a comment? Yeah, it's Councillor for the ward.
Thank you, Chair. Anything near the green belt always gets a councillor excited, but I just wanted to say how pleased I am that this application has come forward and to recognise the real effort of the applicant has made to work closely with councillors, the council and the Environment Agency to reach a conclusion that actually works for everyone. Grassroots football has such an important part in our community life, and it brings people together, gives younger and older people opportunities to grow and keeps local sport alive and thriving. And Hillingdon Borough Football Club is steeped in local history, having been born in Useley and moved to Ruislip. It's great to see that the legacy is being protected and built upon through this application. This lays the foundations for the likes of Wheelstone to be able to move forward with their stadium development, as Hillingdon's commitment to supporting football and grassroots football across the borough. From a planning perspective, the proposal enhances local sport provision, as the officer has said, and supports community wellbeing and improves the site's environmental resilience to an extent through better drainage, landscaping and extended biodiversity, and it makes a good use of the land without making a significant harm to the openness of the green belt. And I genuinely welcome the applicant and the way the council have been able to get the conditions, and I think it shows exactly how councillors, officers, third parties and applicants can work together to get good outcomes. This is a great example of partnership, and I think it's important to come to these things as well as to oppose is to be for them. I think that's the role of a good local councillor, so I'm very happy to support it and hope the committee is too, and I know the chair supports a grassroots football side, so I'm sure he'll be happy to support it too.
Yes, on that note, there is other football clubs apart from the ones that Councillor Smallwood mentioned in the borough. Do you have any questions for Councillor Smallwood? You may take a seat, sir. Thank you very much. I open to the floor. I've got Councillor Chandal and Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. Greenbelt, no harm. All the representatives that given a report, no objections. It brought back memories, this is, when I used to play football in 1975, and our feet used to we used to sink into the mud up to our knees. Reading this report, I must commend the officers. I never knew so much went into drainage and all the rest of it. So, in terms of what it offers us, I think it's a fantastic step forward. I don't feel we need to waste too much time with this. I think and move forward. I will be recommending officer's recommendation. Just one question on 7.33. It does say that up to 4 matches will be played per day between the hours of 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You've got capacity of 104 parking spaces with a guesstimate, I would put at the best, of 40 cars per match. Is there any condition that we can put that make sure they don't have 4 matches at the same time? Because obviously that will compound to 160 cars coming to a match, which will lead to, 46 parked on the roads. And that road is not to be parked on. Apart from that, I think it's a wonderful application, fantastic report, and well presented, young man. And I'll more than happy to go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Chairman. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to ask, is that you, Hayden, in the photo? I was trying to work out if it's there. No, I'm happy to second. When I was reading this and I kept reading about imported soils, I thought they were coming from Australia at first, but no, just imported to the site. So no, I'm happy to second officer's recommendation for approval. I think with the change that's afoot kind of in Westminster at the moment, Greenbelt could be anything in the future, housing, industrial. I think this is good that it's something for the community, and for the consultation showed that there was at least one person in favour of it.
Thank you. So it's proposed and seconded. Any questions? Councillor Gaelic.
Thank you, Chair. So the report mentions that the construction of pitches must be completed within 3 planting seasons. Is the start date the date when the first load of soil will be imported to the site, or is it another date for that? And also, do we know how long it will take for the soil to be brought to the site? Because I suppose the traffic will be coming along the Breakspear Road, and at the moment we still have quite a lot of traffic there from the HS2.
Do you want to take that on, Hayden?
Yeah. So with regards to the pitch being completed and the planting season, it would be from the first start date that we would start counting the 3 planting seasons. So when the first importation of soil comes in, then on it would be 3 planting seasons. It needs to be complete, and we tried to put that timing on there to ensure that they didn't get a scenario whereby they do 1 load of soil and then it's left for 3 years and you just see piles of soil. We wanted to make sure that the pitches would be complete. With regards to your other question, if you don't mind repeating it, then I'll get back to you.
Just wanted to know how long would this soil importation take? Would it be days or weeks, or do you have any idea of the duration of the process?
Dr. T, I think this is one for you, really, isn't it? Because obviously, I think your main concern is obviously the traffic going in, which we've got lovely HS2 vehicles doing that all the time. Dr. T.
Thanks, Chairman. The applicant has provided a transport assessment, and in that they present 2 scenarios, that if construction takes place over 6 months, there would be 56 goods vehicles per day, 112 two-way movements. If they condense it over 4 months, then there would be a higher number of vehicles arriving each day. That would be 83 or 166 two-way movements. The applicants provided traffic counts, and we've looked at those and done our calculations, and the uplift in traffic flows we consider would be insignificant within the daily variation of traffic in any case.
You may comment. Sorry, my computer went.
Even if we have 56 movements a day, it's very significant if you're using the road, because with 2 or 3 lorries, if you're following them, the journeys are doubled. So from where I live near the stadium, it takes on average 10 minutes to come to Swakely's roundabout. If I follow 2 or 3 lorries, it's half an hour. So increasing those movements in a day, it will be significant for residents.
Can we come up with something around when these movements can happen where it doesn't affect rush hour and other things like that?
Construction
yeah, because I think it's in the construction. It should be. We just make sure it's in the construction things. But I think that should. Well, I mean, we've had the same situation with HS2, so I'm sure we can work around it. So, and yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It's a good question, a good point to raise. I think, just to be clear, we are talking about the construction phase, which is obviously temporary, albeit I appreciate there would be an impact for residents. So we've thought about this quite carefully. Obviously, you've heard from Alan, he's satisfied from a highway safety perspective. And I'll draw your attention to Condition 5, Construction Management Plan. We have been sort of bespoke on this particular condition. We're asking for details around routing, signage, vehicle types, sizes, hours of arrivals, etc. So we've been quite detailed in what we're asking for. So that will need to be submitted. We can review that carefully and agree the best situation, essentially, to mitigate harm.
Is that okay?
Well, in a way, but it's different when you're planning something, on paper or at your desk. It's different when you're sitting in the car, driving along and sitting for prolonged periods of time. It's not the same.
It's not that we don't have any experience in this. I mean, they're going to be coming down the Breakspear Road, which is at the moment for HS2, so it's not really a major issue. And also for residents to know that there is a condition about lighting, because I know that's probably going to come up, but they'd have the applicant has to come back to committee for approval of lighting. Okay? Yeah, is that correct?
Yeah, so just to clarify, it wouldn't necessarily be back to committee, but we have a condition there to say no lighting unless otherwise agreed in writing, which essentially would require planning application for flood lighting.
Okay. Councillor Chenna, do you want to still add something, or can I just go to the vote? Go vote. So I'm proposed and seconded. Can I show hands those in favour? That's unanimous. And any issue. Right, next one is item 8. Owen, that's over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The next item is for the installation of a mezzanine floor that can be used for use class EA retail purposes and use of floor space for ancillary cafe and back of office storage, and that relates to Unit 2 Ruislip Retail Park, Victoria Road. The item is brought forward to committee as it's a major in terms of floor space. It would be situated within an existing envelope of a building, so it doesn't involve external works under the scheme. So here's the site location plan with access off Victoria Road into the superstore. Unit 2 is a vacant retail unit in a purpose-built terrace of 4 large former retail units, or format retail units. It has been vacant for over 1 year since Carpet Right closed in the summer of 2024. You can see the constraint site. It does lie within a potentially contaminated land and critical drainage area. It is, however, not listed or within a conservation area. And this is the site highlighted within the red line. And there are some photos of the existing retail park. The car park in front hosts approximately 300 car spaces to the front, so highways are satisfied that there is sufficient parking within the complex. And here we have existing and proposed floor plans. So the existing building itself is a single story floor plate. They will be adding a mezzanine floor within the void, which will add an additional 1,300 square metres approximately of floor space.
Don't worry.
It's the screens. It's not the laptop. The laptop is working.
Okay, yeah, okay, so that's
Houston, we don't
that's
have
the mezzanine floor there, and I suppose the next one you kind of give an idea of the actual location. So the top section plan is as existing, and on the bottom is the proposed section which shows the floor plate being installed. Oh God. That's the last slide anyway. In terms of principle, the actual the principle of the additional floor space has been accepted. In terms of we have done a retail or there has been a retail impact assessment carried out by the applicant. This has been referred to an independent retail consultant who has reviewed and scrutinised this document. As part of the information submitted, there was a sequential test done as the site does lie outside the town centre. Both the retail impact assessment and also the sequential test, the retail consultant is satisfied that both these are acceptable and is satisfied that there is no alternative sites within the town centre that the applicant can rely on. Basically, there is Unit 2 is currently subject to a restrictive condition from its 2014 planning consent that restricts the sale of clothing and footwear on this site. This was attached at the time to protect the vitality and viability of the town centres. the proposal would supersede the 2014 consent, would allow the sale of clothing, footwear, furniture, homewares and ancillary items. There has been a condition attached to that which ensures that it is specific to the items within the description of development. As discussed, the applicant has submitted robust justification in the submitted sequential test and retail impact assessment, and demonstrates that there are no available or suitable sites within the edge of or within the town centres, and that the proposal would not unduly impact the vitality and viability of the town centre. As such, officers raise no concerns with this permission superseding condition 12 of the 2014 consent. The proposal would bring into use a vacant formal retail unit into productive use, improving retail choice for residents and providing approximately 50 to 60 local jobs. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. We do have a legal agreement as well securing air quality contributions, and also there's a legal agreement related to employment as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open to the floor. Councillor Burrows, Councillor Chamdell, Councillor Bennett and Councillor Singh. Councillor Chamdell.
Thank you, Chair. I think the restriction on what to sell, I think previously there were other units nearby which sold shoes. I think Next was there as well, so I think that's partly why that was there. I've got no objection with this application. I think it's great to get another unit in place and offer what 2025 needs. An eating place and somewhere people to shop. It's good parking there. I must note in the report, these are occupied Currys, Home Base, DFS. I think that Home Base should be Wicks. Home Base actually closed down. So just for a little clarity. Apart from that, I'm happy to go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows. I think the Wicks is on the other site, but that's Home Base is on another site, isn't it? Anyway, it has closed down, but yeah, it's near the shoe place. And Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Chamdell. It's good to see an empty unit being brought back into use for retail, giving our residents a wider choice as well, and bringing new business into that area, and also creating jobs, which is good. So I'm pleased that it's going to be there, and I'm happy to second the recommendation for approval.
Thank you. Councillor, you take Councillor Singh and then Councillor Clare.
Thank you, Chair. Anyway, our colleague, they already proposed and second, so I'm quite happy. Actually, it's good development, good for the local residents, they can get the jobs. So I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Gillick.
I have a question.
Please.
So the air quality contribution is a reduced contribution, and it depends on green sustainable measures. So I'd like to know what those measures are, and if they were not in place, what would be the full fee of its contribution?
Yeah, I can probably take that one. So it's actually quite a sort of a complex area. So there's a detailed methodology that our air quality officer uses, which is based on the GLA's methodology. So essentially, first of all, you have to consider the type of the use, and there are certain benchmarks. Now, this particular one doesn't actually fit neatly into any of the benchmarks. So the starting point is kind of a benchmark that is too high for it. And then we have to consider the sort of site specifics around it. So as you saw from the red line, it's quite a sort of tight red line around the building, and because of the nature of the development, obviously it wasn't possible to have tree planting, for example. So the particular sort of things that have been taken into account this time is things like there's a travel plan, which is secured by condition, and the fact that there's no additional parking over and above the current situation. So what we've done is sort of factor all those things into account and reached what we consider is an appropriate contribution, based on all the different factors. So we are satisfied that that is an appropriate and reasonable contribution and meet the SIL test.
Microphone. What will be in the...
Could you indicate what will be full contribution?
I think it's something that you're going to be working on, isn't it?
Those measures.
I can't really answer it specifically because this particular proposal didn't fit into any of the benchmarks. So what we had to do was look at the two either side and reach a reasonable contribution. So I don't want to say a figure which would be misleading, but we are satisfied with this contribution.
Okay, right. So proposed and seconded. The people of Ruislip will be Ruislip will be getting a new next door. How about that? It's exciting. Proposed and seconded. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you all for watching and those for attending. And thank you for my office team and the councillors. And it's good night from me.